Hello friends and followers, welcome to another exciting episode from the Out There channel. This is episode 22, 21st of May 2017. On tonight's episode I will be covering the world pyramids. There's a lot of chat on ancient aliens, theorizing all sorts of things about them, and I just want to put together a collection of facts and also other theories out there. The three things we'll be covering is how they were built, were the pyramids a machine, and how did the pyramid design get spread around the world. As you can see here on a map, the key big pyramids were mostly centered around the middle part of the globe. Egypt, and then to the right Asia, and then to the left Middle America, Mexico, Aztecs, Inca, Maya, and the odd one in Brazil. Here is a list of pyramid designs around the central part there. Most of them are stepped up, not smooth edges, but even the Great Pyramids were built that way initially, and then they filled in to make them smooth sides, as you can see from some of their earlier designs. Here are photographs of the key big ones that have been built, and they're all quite interesting designs, all very similar, as you can see. Asian with the little thing at the top is very similar to that in Middle America, Central America. A big pyramid in Mexico with a lot of surrounding buildings, and there's also a pyramid in China. That one almost looks like it's been hidden, buried with dirt and planted with trees on top. But that's China for you. They like to hide things. You may not be aware, but there's an underground chamber deep underground at the base of the Great Pyramid, which they said they had water in it. And as you can see on these charts here, someone suggesting that there was some sort of method to get water from the Nile and use a thing called a ram pump to move the water inside the pyramid, which doesn't use electricity but instead uses gravity, air pressure and temperature differences to move water. You can actually pump water uphill. So some theorized that the pyramids were actually a power plant, but that's sort of been debunked, that they wouldn't generate enough power from using that method. But doesn't mean it wasn't a machine, and I'll explain more in a minute. But as you can see here, the chart says it was never designed for a tomb, and it's always been wondered why there was a lack of decorations on the wall, and why so many ventilation shafts and tunnels and chambers. Didn't make sense to have an underground chamber for burial, especially all the energy and time it would have taken to construct these just for a tomb. You may ask why there's been no documentation or etchings and photographs of paintings showing this pyramid as a machine, and it might be just the same reason why the US government doesn't announce their stealth planes, that everything's kept secret, and they probably don't even write half of it down, and it's actually stored in people's heads. It would make sense to train up a handful of people that knew about how to maintain it and operate the machine, and not write it down to keep a secret and keep the world power at the time. So if there was a war and none of them engineers spoke, they'd simply kill them, and eventually they'll think, oh, we'll find the documentation how to access it all and work it all, and find out they've just killed their only source of information, and so it rots into ruins because no one knows how to work it anymore. That's just my theory, of course. As you can see here on the diagram, there's ventilation or very small shafts that run to the outside of the pyramid from the Queen's chamber and the King's chamber, which some say point to certain stars in the sky, but I suggest that maybe the water was split into hydrogen and oxygen, and the King's chamber would have been where the hydrogen collects because it's lighter than oxygen, so it would have built up in the King's chamber, and the vents going to the outside would tap off so they could tap the hydrogen off once it's been collected, a bit like a gas tank. And the oxygen, they may have discarded it, they may have not known what it was for. They may have used it to power furnaces, because oxygen would have made it even hotter. There's a lot of theories that you could involve in that part of it alone, but they probably discovered the two gases from water by accident, like a lot of stuff in science is discovered by accident, and they might have found that the hydrogen exploded and saw that it lifted up some linen or silk or paper even, and saw that it actually had some lifting capabilities. I'll get more into that in a minute. So let's break it down. How much voltage is needed to split water into its gases? Amazingly, only 1.23 volts. And they probably use water itself to generate the power needed to split the water, which I will discuss again further on. As you can read there, it only takes 270 grams of water to make 350 litres of hydrogen and 175 litres of oxygen. That's because water's 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, so it should make more hydrogen than oxygen, H2O. So where did they get the electricity from to split the water in the first place? Well, there are a couple of theories, and I think one of them would be the Baghdad battery idea, where they might have used wine and 2 different metals, copper, zinc, to act like a battery terminal to generate the power from them. But there's even another idea here that simply uses water dripping down into 2 buckets through 2 different types of metal rings, creates a positive charge on one bucket and a negative charge on the other bucket, and it builds up until you get a spark between the gap, which would then, if you put that in water, would split the water molecules into gas. So there are a few ideas out there where you don't need a Tesla AC generation or hydro dam or anything like that. The question is, we don't know for sure because there's no documentation of it working, and whether they had this concept at one stage and it got lost in wars, and it's got rediscovered again by a Scottishman here. Even today they're experimenting with hydrogen again, making it from water, and the best methods of doing it. Even adding salts to water can increase gas production, so fresh water may not have been the choice. A researcher suggests that the Queen's chamber has a cathode and an anode to the entrance, which he says using salt water could cause a charge between the 2 points, making hydrogen and oxygen. So if you're still with me and I haven't melted your brain with all this technical mumbo jumbo, you'll see where it's leading. Now imagine that they had silk that they sew into bags and collected it, tapped off the hydrogen gas into the bags, and presto, we have hot air balloons, well, airships that rise up on hydrogen gas. The early designs of those were the Zeppelins from Germany, and of course hydrogen, as you know, is very explosive, So nowadays they use helium, not hydrogen. But you also can use just hot air, pumping hot air into a balloon all the time to create lift, which is the other way they safely do it nowadays. But that's the least efficient because you have to carry your energy supply with you all the time. Here's an article talking about how the Egyptians would have been using silk way before the Silk Road, where it was trade routes. And also here it shows the Civil War used their balloons made from silk, and have a bit of fabric to show what that was made from. So you can see where I'm leading, that the gods from the skies may have been the Egyptians that travelled in these balloons, and I will get more into how that was possible. And it may not be ET, alien technology, theory at all, but everything was humans that had technology that was lost. Now if we look at the wind currents of the world globe, you can see the yellow lines show the flow from Egypt to Middle Central America and the Asian region, all in the middle there. Now here's a chart showing a link between all the great pyramids from Asia to Egypt to Central America, and look, it matches up with the air currents. So a airship would circle around that region, and so they could just use the natural winds of planet Earth to navigate around the globe. Here's a simple map showing the key points around the planet, and take a note of number 6 Easter Island, which is next to South America there. Here is a map of Easter Island and the location of the stone heads, and here's a famous stone heads image that you can use to jog your memory. Now the reason I'm using Easter Island is it's got a legend of bird head entities. You know, Egyptians had men with eagle heads, and Easter Island has also bird entities, or deities as they call them. And here they talk about them coming from the sky, and the ships were shaped like canoes, and that might be a key point there. I'm just going to cover that now. Now if you think about it, it makes sense to have a canoe underneath a balloon if you're travelling across this ocean. In case it has a problem and lands on the sea, you still want about a means of escape, using sails and whatnot. So it may have been a combination of a ship and a airship. There's a picture of a Egyptian boat painted on one of their pyramids or walls, and also they made reed boats, as you can see here, with cabins as well, because you want a cabin if it's going to be up in the air and it's raining, and you want some cover from the wind and cold while you sleep. So what other evidence would suggest that we had airships? Well, there's the Nazca lines that can only be seen from high above. Some more evidence could be in the form of maps. According to this guy here, of a Egyptian wall shows a globe of the earth. I'm not too sure on that one, but it does look similar. And there also has been maps that were based on 500-year-old maps, which had great detail of Antarctica, South Pole, that we only got with satellite technology. So they must have had some form of view from above to be able to create a map of such great detail. And don't forget, they also talk about these new pyramids they found on South Pole, which are probably just natural formation of mountains, but they do have some sharp, definite angles there. Okay, that was 2 topics covered, how pyramids got spread around the world, and the pyramids being a machine. Now I want to cover how the pyramids were built. Was it done by aliens? Nah, I don't think so. And I will show you why in the following evidence. We've got to give man more credit for creativity and manpower. So apparently they found these semicircle segments at building sites. And why lift many tons of weight, which is impossible even with today's cranes, when you can simply turn them into wheels by using the round segments as shown in the diagram, and simply using a track and manpower to push it along to the building site from the quarry. Ramps and sleds weren't the only thing Egyptians used to move heavy weights. You can see a man here all in the track in the front, and many men using their muscles to pull the thing along. So many hands make light work. A selection of diagrams here proposes how they could have lifted the heavy weights off the sleds onto the pyramid using a counterweight and strong beams of wood and a specially designed pivot point made of stone or wood to hoist it up one level at a time. Searching YouTube, there's various videos of how this works, and I will show those in a minute, some frames from them, and you can go and have a look at the full videos if you want. This guy shows using a beam to move a very heavy rock, and even his son can move it, a 5-year-old there, or whatever his age is. A man here shows using a lever or liver, depending on which country you come from, how to turn it using a roller or a rock underneath. Simple as that. A man on this Canadian documentary is brilliant. He shows just using wood to raise a heavy multiple ton block of concrete, I guess it is, and just using blocks of wood in the middle to raise it up slowly, and seesaws it using a counterweight to make a gap each time to raise it higher and higher. And he has some sand pit at one end that he sprays out to let gravity turn it fully upwards to make a thing like a Stonehenge, so that could be used on the pyramids as well to raise a heavy block up slowly. Here's another example using Coral Castle, famous castle in America. A single man built it all, and you can see he used techniques of block and tackle, poles, wood structures, and saws and simple tools. He had electric motor to help with the workload, to pull, drag, lift, and he charged it using a bicycle and dynamo to charge a car battery. So there you go. He said he went to the library and found the secret of the pyramid builders. So I guess he found it in block and tackle. Ancient alien theorists keep going on about how blocks are cut to precise precision without any saw marks, and hardest stone ever, unable to cut it. But if you heat up stone enough, you can slice it like cheese, and you can even use rope on heated slab to saw through rocks. There's a few videos demonstrating how it can be done. In fact, you can get so much heat from the sun that you can melt rock and metal with it. This guy here shows using a simple lens to direct a beam of light like a magnifying glass, which would have been possible back in the ancient days. I'm pretty sure they would have figured it out, even using crystal rocks like quartz. And you've heard of the Vikings using the sunstone. So here we've got him setting a piece of wood on fire and various metal fragments, and also burns a hole into a rock, a nice smooth hole. Here you can see it can even set it on fire and vaporize it into smoke fragments. And using a combination of heat and water, you can easily split rock, and also wedges while it's heated. You could burn holes in solid stone and then stick some wedges in, split it. Wouldn't leave any saw marks. You don't need a diamond cutter. So there's a lot of ideas out there how man can do it without the aid of having ET and UFOs come down and show him how. So I leave it there. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and hit the like button if you liked the video. It helps get more people to see it through the search algorithms. And everybody stay safe, and I'll see you next time.